Hey everyone, welcome back to Playing Quietly. My name is Ryan, and today I am bringing you another Remnant 2 guide. So today we're going to be talking about farming experience for Prisms. Now this is going to be extremely similar to one of my previous XP farming guides, however I have a bit more information that is going to optimize your farming methods and routes. So for those of you who have seen my previous farming guide, you know that we are going to be farming the hatchery. In my opinion, this is still the superior farming method, even with boss rush mode. I believe that this is going to yield higher XP per hour, which is the main goal of what we're doing today. So let's talk a little bit about layout. Hatchery is, of course, the best XP farm, but there are a few very key things that we want to keep in mind. The first and most important thing that we are looking for is for the spawn crystal to be on the same plane as the rest of the map. So there is a chance for the spawn crystal to spawn up here in the elevator area. That is not what we want. That is going to be an extra ride, and it's going to be really annoying to deal with. You could, of course, use the checkpoint crystal as your spawn. However, I have found that usually the most dense areas are going to be towards the beginning of the map. The next big thing that we are going to be looking for in our map is the claw injectable. This is going to have a whole bunch of enemies that spawn on this walkway here, and sometimes even up in that area there. And something that I would highly suggest using is the Remnant 2 Save Guardian to farm up this spawn point. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier in more than just this way. I already have a video on my channel explaining how to use the Save Guardian, but that is from I think more than a year ago, and I am currently working on a more updated version of how to use the Save Guardian. It's going to have a lot more information and go over some of the changes in the most recent version. So let's go over some of the items that we are going to need to make this run successful. So the first item we want to talk about is Mudtooth's Elixir. This is going to give us a 15% XP boost that is going to last us 60 minutes, and the effects are going to last through death. It's also a really easy item to get. All we need to do is finish the campaign once, and Mudtooth will have it in his inventory. The next thing that we are going to want to utilize is the Scholar trait. This is just going to give us a passive 15% XP gain. And again, this is very easy to get. We just need to defeat the last boss. And the final item that we are going to be using is the Sage Stone Ring. This is going to give us another 10% experience gain, and it is a random world drop in Yesha. So again, using the Remnant 2 Save Guardian is going to make it a lot easier to get this ring. So let's now talk a little bit about the build that we're using here. We're going to start off with our archetypes. In our first archetype slot, we're going to be running Ritualist so that we have access to Vial, which will let us apply Infected. Infected victims are going to receive 15% more status effect damage, and on death they are going to spread damaging status effects to nearby enemies within a 22.5 meter radius. And for our archetype skill, we are of course going to be choosing Miasma, as it is going to work really well with Vial. Your secondary slot is going to be far less important. I'm running Warden just for a little bit of extra survivability in case I do get into a situation where I am taking some damage, and because my drone is going to let me see enemies that are on the map. Your traits aren't going to be that important. We are, of course, going to get Affliction and Barrier by default. From there, I really like to run Fortitude and Strongback for the extra armor that we can get, just in case we do happen to take some damage. The two really important ones that we're going to be running are, of course, Scholar and Amplitude. From there, I would recommend picking up Siphoner, Leech, Barkskin, and then filling out whatever else you feel like you need. When it comes to the gear, because we are taking strong back, I like to run Leto Mark 1 for our helm, chest, and legs. And in the glove slot, I like to go with the Crimson Guard gauntlets. This is going to put us right at the edge of the medium roll threshold. Because we are running lifesteal, we are going to be going with the Profane Heart. Your long gun slot is not going to matter that much. However, I would recommend going with the Sparkfire shotgun as we are running a kind of status effect build. For our modifier, I would go with corrosive rounds, and our mutator, we're going to go with twisting wounds. For the melee slot, you can run whatever the heck you want. However, since it is kind of a status effect build, I am running a Krell Axe with the Steadfast mutator. Now, something that does have a bit of weight to it is going to be our handgun. We're going to be running Enigma so that we can apply shock damage and overload. And in the rare event that you do get a crit, Fetid Wounds is nice to run as the mutator. Now, the real star of the show here is one of my absolute favorite items in the game, and that is the Toxic Release Valve. For the most part, this is going to be all the damage we need. When we swap our weapons with this, we are going to create a Toxic Cloud, which is going to deal 213.1 acid damage to all enemies within a 10.5 meter radius, and it is going to apply Corrosion, which is going to deal 596.5 acid damage over 7 seconds. And this can only be applied every 3 seconds, which is going to be more than enough for what we need. Now, for our rings, the only thing that is going to really matter for our purposes is the Sage Stone ring, which again is going to give us that nice 10% experience boost. And then I like to run the Shadow of Misery, which is going to give us 20% extra status effect damage. I like to run the routing cable because we are going to be running a lot, so we should have that extra shield up almost the whole time. And then the Band of the Fanatic is going to give us an extra 30% status effect damage at the cost of the duration only lasting 50% of the time. However, almost everything is going to be dying quite quickly thanks to our Toxic Release Valve, along with our Enigma. And if we do run into anything, or we just want to clear some rooms really fast, we are going to be using Miasma. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at what I do for the run. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is, of course, summon our drone. This is, again, going to give us a little bit of extra damage, as well as show us where enemies are on the map. So we are going to run down to the first big spawn room, and we are going to pop Miasma, which is actually going to go through the walls now, as you guys will see. So you see there is a room on the other side here, and we're going to pop this, and it's going to take out everything in the area. We are going to move our way up, and we're going to use our Toxic Release Valve. And while the Toxic Release Valve, and that is actually going to go through the walls as well. You see there were a ton of enemies in this area. They've all been cleared out. We're going to use our Toxic Release Valve in this next big room, and anything that straggles along we are going to hit with our Enigma. There are a few stragglers in this room here, however, I would generally ignore this room. And that is going to take us to the last bit of big density here. Now sometimes there is an elite in this room here, which is the last really big spawn room, so this is a good time to pop that last Miasma. And once we get to the end here, we could either use the crystal to reset, or the better option in my opinion is to use liquid escape, which will just take us to the crystal at the beginning of the zone. So let's go ahead and run that route one more time at full speed, and we'll take note of how much XP we actually gain. So we are at level 19 and we're about 1/6 of the way through the level. So let's see what we can get. And we'll pump our miasma just to finish whatever might be left off. And we will use our liquid escape. So that took very little time, and we got about, I'd say, maybe a third of a bar of experience at level 19, which is not too shabby for such little time and effort. The last thing that I want to note is XP versus difficulty. So on normal difficulty, we are going to be getting 100% XP. For hard mode, we're going to be getting 115. For Nightmare, we're going to be getting 130. And for Apocalypse, we're going to be getting 150. If you are clearing things extremely quickly on Apocalypse, good for you. You win the award, you're the best boy or girl. However, for my money, Nightmare is going to be your best bet. The difference in experience is not that much. However, the difference in enemy damage and enemy HP is quite big. Enemy damage in Nightmare is going to be 325%, whereas enemy damage in Apocalypse is going to be 450. You're going to be getting one shot a whole heck of a lot more in Apocalypse than you are in Nightmare. Enemy HP is also 250% in Nightmare, whereas it is 300% in Apocalypse. So things are going to be dying a bit slower as well. So if that extra 20% XP is worth it for you to do Apocalypse, especially if you get a map that is extremely easy to clear, that doesn't have a lot of elites spawning. This map, for example, I hardly ever get elites spawning, so this would be the ideal map. Honestly, in my opinion, this is an extraordinary map for XP farming. And with that out of the way, that is all I have for you guys for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, hopefully I have earned your subscription. Like I said, I'm gonna have that Remnant 2 Save Guardian update video coming your way very soon, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. Have yourselves a good one.